Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today we're continuing on with our Fourth World Saga reviews. This is Jimmy Olsen, issue number 138, cover dated June 1971. Back in the day when comics were 15 cents. Amazing. Every once in a while when I review these books, I'm reminded of that fact and it just blows my mind. What do we have here? Another great Kirby cover, ruined by the art department at DC. It is kind of an interesting artistic mix where I'm pretty sure, once again, this is Neil Adams inking on top of Jack Kirby. But of course, how stylizing the faces to resemble a little bit more, I guess, what people were used to with Superman and Jimmy Olsen at that time, which is, counterproductive to asking Jack Kirby to draw Superman. So a choice I hate. The composition, still his, so I kind of like it. Jimmy Olsen, as opposed to the other Fourth World stuff, the covers always seemed a little bit more bland. I hate to say it. I just love overall the design of the other three series, Forever People, Mr. Miracle, and New Gods, much better than the Jimmy Olsen one. Even though they're similar, they're still trying to remind you that it's part of kind of the Superman family of books, and I find that annoying. And to just have white here, really just doesn't work for me on this cover. If you're going to have the strips up and down, as we've seen with the other Fourth World Saga books, you put some color in there, some sort of, yellow or red or, something striking, and they're just not doing it here. I don't know if this saves time for Jack Kirby on drawing the cover, right? Because there's a whole section where he doesn't have to really draw anything. It does create kind of a unifying look across all the books, right? But yeah, just not a fan of this cover specifically on Jimmy Olsen, other than more examples of Kirby collage behind here, probably going through his Scientific American magazines, cutting out some technology bits and creating just some weird backgrounds. Limited by production in the 70s. I've talked about this before, but still looks cool. And there's enough resolution on the image, I think, that it can work. What didn't work is the fact that it was black and white. And in this case, I do like it. In this issue, they've started adding, maybe they did this before, I'm really noticing they're trying to add some color to it. So they got like a green here. And even this has maybe this one here for sure has kind of a slight blue hue to it. But, not quite there yet with integrating those photographic elements into comics in 1971. But they seem to be trying and working on it. So I'll give them some points for that. And this whole white halo around Superman definitely added once again. Maybe not even by Neil Adams, but, someone in the art department to make sure that Superman pops from that background image, right? Which I feel is kind of ridiculous because, just from the colors on him, nice and bold, as opposed to the background cover. There's no reason why he shouldn't have popped without it, but again, this period is odd. See where his hand is not highlighted there, where they stopped? It still reads really well. Anyways, enough bitching about the cover. So once again, Jack Kirby pretty much does everything, and Vince Colletta is the inker. I've talked about before how I do feel Vince is making a more concerted effort, I think, in his inks for this DC for these DC books. So they do look a little bit better than, for me, anyways, or more true to Kirby's pencils than what he was doing over at Marvel on Thor. Great kind of shot here. We've got the Newsboy Legion's parents kind of rushing in because they think their kids are in danger, or they know their kids are in danger. And just a lot going on from last issue. We've got the four-armed creature attacking, right? The what are they called? Well, anyways, the Kirby's representation of the hippies. Their town is kind of self-destructing. All right, so once again, he's following his formula of one splash page and then a double page splash to start off each book. It's a good way to get you into the story real quick with some cool visuals. This is an interesting choice, obviously, for the double page splash, almost a full collage. It's got a bit of drawing here, but that's about it. I think even the ramp is some sort of picture cutout element. But I think this one's one of the more successful ones. Again, the production is getting a little bit better, so it's a little bit clearer, and there's such a vintage 70s vibe to this. Because of those limited production values that, once he starts to be able to use at least one more color in the images, I think they become a lot better. And this one really works for me. I love the look of, I guess, some kind of city or circuits or stuff in the back there. All of this really works well for me. I think it looks cool. Sometimes the collage pages are very jarring, but for some reason I just kind of really like this one, and I'm buying it. And then we get another, it's just another splash, So really love this one. This is just pure Kirby perspective and foreshortening, and these two vehicles pretty much almost about to run you over. Just the tilted angle, the roller derby kind of, row that they're on, the extreme curve of it. I just love all of this. The movement in the lines. Such a great image here. And then unfortunately this splash page, once again ruined by Superman's production department, with the stupid looking, 50s style Superman face. I've bitched enough about it in past reviews, so I'll just point it out real quick and point out the good Superman stuff as we get through it. And then again, sometimes, like, I mentioned, I'm pretty sure it was last issue, whoever's doing the changes doesn't know, because of the helmet on this guy's head, that he's Jimmy Olsen. So he didn't change the face here, right? So Jimmy Olsen, I'm pretty sure this is a Vince Colletta Kirby face, right? That Colletta inked, but definitely that is not. And it's even like, it's as you move in, right? So it feels like this stuff was inked for Kirby, and then, as we get about here, let's start feathering and creating that Superman look. Just makes no sense at all. Great image other than that. And yeah, so they're stuck in an egg, basically, some sort of weird alien egg, and they're trying to get out of it. Some good cartooning here with the other character's boot and this guy's face. He's already got kind of a cartoony, elastic face, so that Kirby just exaggerates it here, and it works really well. It's such an odd looking shot, but yeah, within the context of the story, you know what's going on. It works well. Oh man, how much does Superman just stand out because of that? Ugh. The only bad part of this comic. Man, Kirby's throwing out tons of splashes on this one, eh? There's the antagonist from last issue, right? The four-armed creature. The four-armed terror is what he's called here. Great shot. Love the dynamic kind of shadows, they're not full. There's some lines kind of that you can see through. Adds texture to the character. Somewhat rocky, almost thing-like, I guess. All this debris, a mix of like technology and rock. Could have been colored a little clearer to separate the elements, but I mean, even though it's not, you get it because Kirby's such a great artist. Good contrast in his choice of shadows and stuff. Great sequence again, like really feels powerful and like he's moving and straining his muscles. And here it really feels like he's, hitting that thing damn hard with his forearms. Clever, of course, because he's got 4 to have 4 sound effects. That makes sense. I think that's a good idea here. Lots of movement there. The Kirby, dynamic lines, speed lines. And then he goes full diagram, which I like, but in a clever way, right? So, when I say diagrams, I feel like, or, this kind of thing, diagram like drawing tends to be profile shots of everything, right? So you get the profile of the creature kind of burrowing its way into the DNA lab, right? Where all the genetic mutation experiments are going on. And you see topside what's going on. The soldiers kind of running around, and there's been an alert, right? So you got one in profile running, and then one in 3/4 from the back moving that way. So right away, not profiles. And then this shot here of this kooky Kirby machine, right? So take this away, and it's just a cool, establishing shot with some good angles. Then throw that in. There's that diagram kind of aspect to it. Is it an extra panel? Is it part of the, underneath? I think it's both, right? Because usually, most times there's some gutters there between Kirby's panels, and there isn't here. So I'm going to assume that's literally like the ground. Oh, going to get through these ones quickly just because, just all horrible Superman stuff. I've mentioned before, basically Superman using his powers in an interesting way here that I don't think he'd done before. Kirby would find interesting ways, interesting new powers. Well, not new power, but new ways to interpret his powers and for Superman to use them. So Superman rubs his mighty palms violently together. That's could be interpreted weird. The results are a spectacular burst of crackling energy. So yeah, so he creates heat, I guess, right? But just at super speed. And I mentioned before that all the small shots in Jimmy Olsen of Superman, the really far away shots, are the best because they're the most Kirby, right? So it doesn't feel like they've been messed with. I'll stop on those because once again, now we go to the offices of the Daily Planet and Perry White and Superman characters. So what do we get? We get a stuck-on face here. Once again, that looks horrible with, some square Kirby fingers that they try to do something to, I feel like, in the art department. Just horrible, right? Just the mismatching of these two aesthetics, just for that reason alone, they shouldn't have messed with it. Kind of like this interesting texture it's being used on this lady's sweater with no actual contour line. There's a contour line here, and then, you know, I guess Vince Coletta decides to drop it here. Very kind of something we'll see with Frank Miller, you know, a few decades later. So everyone's exiting the wild area, right? The wildlings, I think they were called, right? Maybe that's what they were called. Anyways. And of course, the evil, it's literally called the Evil Factory. So the evildoers here, the Simeon and Makari, right? Release the other clones. Again, talking about Kirby being forward thinking, and if I've always talked about him being what I consider like a futurist. He can see things and infer things. He was very, you know, I can remember cloning becoming a thing and people talked about it and kind of in the news in the mid 90s, right? That's where it really, I think, hit the culture and people started talking about it, and most people were aware of the idea of cloning and genetics and all that. This is 1971, right? So he's reading these magazines that not a lot of people are reading, and he's throwing those concepts into the books. And it's like, at this point, it's not even superheroes to me anymore. It's very much a sci-fi kind of saga is the Fourth World, right? Mixed in with some mythology and stuff. So the best of both worlds. You know, you can do fantasy, right, and Conan type stuff, and barbarians or aliens, and you can do sci-fi as well. It's just great. So I thought I really like the sequence here, so I'll just kind of point out more of the story, what's going on here. Morgan Edge, right? He's the head of the TV station that Clark Kent now works for, right? He's not a reporter anymore in the 70s, at least in this book that I know of. But he secretly is evil and works for Darkseid, right? So he's a minion of Darkseid. So in this sequence, he finds out basically, right? Edge, this is Intergang, right? Intergang is kind of the in-between, you know, group between the humans and Darkseid and his minions and stuff. Like the I guess the sci-fi mafia or something. Anyways. Do this now. Leave your office or copters waiting on your building roof. Are you taking me to Darkseid? Does he have news of the wild area? Yes. In 5 minutes, the reactor in the wild area will explode. The city metropolis is within its destruction range. Now hurry. So Morgan Edge, you know, not a dummy, leaves the building. But of course, not to panic anyone else, doesn't tell anyone, right? Because he's a baddie. He's a jerk. And I just like this little bit of dialogue that Kirby throws in that clues me into maybe Morgan Edge is a little bit inspired by Stan Lee, I feel like, you know, not just later on when he's going to do the Funky Flashman, which we'll see soon in which book is that? Funky Flashman is in Mr. Miracle. We'll see that soon in a few months probably. But I feel like maybe Morgan Edge is also one aspect of Stan Lee, and some of this, I'll read this because that's what makes me think that. Leaving early, Chief. Gonna dandy up for the big Guild Award program, eh? Ah, yes, the annual awards and honors, carried live across the nation. I must forego the pleasure, friends. I leave to serve Galaxy. My poor ego must wait. Sounds like the kind of stuff Stan Lee would say. Choose one amongst you to stand in for me tonight. After all, it's only fitting and just. It's you, the little people, who've helped make Galaxy what it is. Yeah, it sounds like some patronizing kind of Stan Lee kind of stuff. And so whisked away in a helicopter that can only be described as coming from or designed by someone from Apocalypse, right? It looks pretty evil. It doesn't look of Earth. And boom, we're back to Superman. And these are, I've talked about how Kirby, I think, was kind of making an effort most times. Now they knew the faces were being changed to draw Superman from the back or from an angle where you don't see his face. So these are some of the better Superman shots in this whole book, right? So from the back here, the back of his head, I still feel the hair was messed with a little bit. This one here, thank you. Some cool Kirby dynamics and motion and anatomy with Superman without showing his face. So I don't feel like they mess with that one. Probably not this one either. You know, it just feels more Kirby right away because we can't see that modified face. And there's some small ones coming up here that I really like. So confronting the forearm tear, right? And you know, this character, good Lord, he's pulling out the damper rods. And I love, again, more science, you know, more that we're learning about radiation and nuclear power and stuff in 1971. That's done it. The damper rods regulate the flow of radiation, and he's using them as weapons. So, you know, that's going to lead to an explosion if they're not careful. This shot here, I think, is cool with lots of shadow. Again, probably purely Kirby. And here's where you can tell that Superman department, like this is just a horrible example of it. See how you've got the telltale Kirby kind of power lines emanating from the impact in the middle there. I am going to assume that what Kirby had drawn here originally was a very kind of line worked out face for Superman, right? Where even this effect was used to define his face up here, and then just stuck this 50s style head on top, and it's just, oh my god. And the proportions are all wrong. All of a sudden Superman's head is very tiny. So yeah, just another great example of how horrible they were. And here, like, you've got a very kind of cool, fairly detailed Kirby type arm here and musculature, and then you've just got the old-timey face. Some other great bits, very Kirby-esque with the crackle, and Superman from the back here, and here from the front, but it's far enough away that, you know, you can't go in and mess too much because it's so small. So I feel like we're getting a pure Kirby Superman here, which I love. Even the logo, if you really pay attention, is notoriously Kirby didn't draw it right, but he drew it his way, and it basically is, or almost basically, the shield that Alex Ross used on Kingdom Come, and that the new Superman, actually, the new movie, has. You can all trace that back to Kirby. I'm sure for the movie, they probably looked at Alex Ross's stuff, maybe not realizing, but Alex Ross has stated that, you know, he took that from Kirby. As small as the example is here, you can go look at some of his Superman actual pencils online, and you'll see it, and it's pretty cool. I think there's maybe another example I can point out. So all of a sudden, the clones also kind of pour out, but as do the soldiers here. Another, I've talked about this principle, right? When you've got soldiers, everyone kind of dressed the same, doing the same kind of action. You want to vary each character that appears in the panel, their position, their angle, you know, use them to be layered. This is just a masterclass of that here, right? Foreground, you know, second foreground, I guess, middle ground, background. Like, all these characters are creating these different planes, and all of them are exactly in different positions. Animation principle, right? You can break these down and create movement between these if you're doing animation. But Kirby's kind of done it right here on the page, kind of the key frames, right? And I mean, here's a shot where there's no reason Superman, to me, should never look like that. This doesn't even look like house style 50s, 60s Superman. Just something really off about his face there. Yeah, so again, I'm going to just point out these panels because you get the Kirby machinery, you get the Kirby crackle, right? Superman's going to save them, you know, throw out the nuclear reactor, get it out of there so it doesn't blow up the Wild City and Metropolis as well. But these little shots of Superman here, right? Pure Kirby, and the body language and the movement for him, you know, straining and stuff, even though it's so tiny, it just comes across right away. Love these two, even though they're tiny. The S shield I was talking about is kind of visible here, and there's another one there. This whole sequence is great, right? Again, it's like he, you know, here they kind of, I guess they figured it was small, but they're like, we still got to put our kind of, our stamp on it, right? So, you know, they couldn't, unfortunately, they did it there as well, but all of these small panels of Superman are just awesome. Different angles, points of view, the machinery. Love all that in the sequence here. And the coloring. I got to say the coloring. I like the choice of, you know, this kind of bronzy, I don't know what color that is. Brown, basically, I think. But kind of a bit of orange in there. I don't know. Very 70s. I like it. And all of the forearm tears falling into the pit here with the nuclear reactor. So we know what's going to happen. Gives us one of those diagram shots once again. And everything explodes far enough from Metropolis, I guess, where there's no damage done. And kind of a weird end where as they come back, they're not even, you know, congratulated or anything by the Newsboy Legion, because they're just angry to have been left behind on the big adventure here. And it even ends with, you know, Superman, you know, Guardian says, but he saved the project, the millions in Metropolis. Superman saved us all. So what does he want? A good conduct medal? Interesting. Like, someone would just talk to Superman that way. I don't know if Kirby was the first to kind of try something like that, but yeah, I found this end kind of funny. Challenging Superman after he'd just saved millions of lives. An odd choice, but still a very fun issue, guys. There you go. That is my review of Jimmy Olsen, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, issue number 138. If you're still watching and you're still subscribed, thank you so much for the support. I really do appreciate it. If you're watching but you're not subscribed, please like and subscribe below. It only takes a quick second. Like the videos, and it really helps the channel out, helps us grow, and helps get us out there to other people who are into comic books just like we are. So everyone out there, thanks again for watching, and have yourselves an awesome day. King Comics presents Big Baby Volume 1, issues 1 to 13. 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KIngCOMICS.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.
Like, subscribe.